response video to Greatex. You said that I looked at one of your small videos on antinatalism and dissected it whilst ignoring the more complex arguments. And well, first I'd like to say that it wasn't a difficult video to dissect, because it largely contained ad hominem attacks and misrepresentations of my arguments, so it was quite easy to dissect it. You said that I ignored your more complex arguments that you'd made in other videos, but you didn't actually direct me to these videos. You didn't post a link to them or even inform me in your video what the title of your videos which contain more complex arguments is. So you know, you weren't very helpful there. And also the video that I responded to didn't contain very complex arguments at all. As I say, they were just mainly ad hominem attacks, you know. So what are you going to do? What are your more complex arguments going to contain? You know, maybe you're going to compound the insults you threw at me. Maybe you'll say that, you know, I'm a lazy, grumpy, stupid, balding git, you know. But that would be a more complex argument then, because you've thrown the word balding in there as well. And yes, I am balding, it's quite true. So you could say that, you see, you could say you're a balding git, and I am balding, and it's true. But according to you, that wouldn't be an ad hominem attack, because it's true that I'm balding. But I would argue it is an ad hominem attack, because it's not at all relevant, you know, to the debate that we're having here. You know, we're debating philosophy. We're not debating the length of my hair or the size of my bald patches. Okay. You said you didn't watch my whole entire video. You see, when I watch your videos, the ones that I have done, I pay you the courtesy of watching them from start to beginning. But obviously you don't pay me that same courtesy. But anyway, you said that my initial premise was erroneous. You said, you know, you caricatured what I said, and you said, imagine if all suffering was -1 and all positive experiences was +1. And you seem to think that I'm equating all types of suffering, all qualitative and quantitative suffering that one can have, in the same way, in treating them as equivalent with one another. But that's not what I was arguing, and that's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing that from the default non-state of non-existence, which is where things rest prior to making the decision whether it's ethical to have a child or not, there are reasons, you know, for not bringing another sentient being into existence, because if you do so, they're going to be exposed to the risk of harm and suffering. You know, I mean, you made this amusing sort of, you know, comparison between one's hat blowing off in the wind and being gang raped by elephants, and you're caricaturing my position, and you're saying, well, according to you, you would treat these in an equivalent way, but I wouldn't. What I would say, though, is that if you have your hat blown off, I mean, it's plausible that, you know, just a tiny trickle of annoyance would occur in your stream of consciousness, and that is a negative thing when viewed in relation to a state of non-existence, you know. And being gang raped by elephants would be an incredibly traumatic experience. So that would be, you know, even worse, much worse, infinitely worse almost. But both having your hat blown off and being gang raped by elephants are both reasons why existence confers an advantage over non-existence. So that's why it's a -1, you know. It's a reason not to do something, whereas on the other hand there's absolutely no reason based on the future person's interest to bring them into existence, because if you don't do so, then there's absolutely no deprivation, you know, absolutely no deprivation. I mean, there's an imaginary baby in my arms here, rockabye baby. Right, this baby, I'm not going to have this baby, so there's not going to be this baby that doesn't exist is not going to be deprived of anything. So why should I feel that I have a moral obligation to bring this baby into existence to experience pleasant things, when if I don't do so, there's no deprivation? Where is there any moral obligation whatsoever to bring this baby into existence? There isn't. On the other hand, there is a moral obligation not to bring a child into the world if that child suffers incredibly, or even a small amount. I mean, you just cannot predict how much suffering your future child will be exposed to if you have that child. So there. Right. You said I ignore the ramifications of my philosophy, but I don't ignore the ramifications of my philosophy. How can you say I ignore the ramifications of my philosophy? You know, the ramifications of my philosophy is that it would be better, it would be a better state of affairs, it would be a wise course of action for everybody to adopt an antinatalist approach and to not have children. We could slowly phase out the human race, we could stagger it, thereby minimizing, you know, the suffering that would occur at the end. You know, I mean, it would be better to have younger people to care for the older people towards the end, and that would be the best thing you're going to do with this thing. It really would. And why? I'll tell you why. Because although this idea, this course of action would result in, you know, a considerable, substantial amount of pain and suffering for the people who exist now, the amount of pain and suffering that phasing out the human race in the way I've just outlined would be less, significantly less than all the pain and suffering that is going to occur in the future, in the indefinite future, if we just blithely continue as we are doing, you know. And I don't like the idea of bringing children into the world so that we can stagger out the extinction, because it goes against deontological principles of not using people as instrumental means. And that's what you're doing when you're having children, you know. You're using them to gratify your own selfish needs to be parents, you know. But there's also a consequentialist angle on this, and I think that if you brought you know, in a conscious way, an ideal or near ideal amount of children into the equation as you're phasing out the human race, from a consequentialist perspective, this could make the end of the human race easier to bear. And I know that this would create an enormous amount of suffering, but as I say, that amount of suffering is finite, and it's predictable, you know. I mean, I'm not saying you could exactly gauge how much pain and suffering that would cause, but what you could say is that it would be significantly less than if we don't go through this course of action and we just continue procreating, you know, for an indefinite long period in the future. I mean, it could be that the human race continues for 100, 200,000 more years, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 billion years, million years, 2, 3 billion years. I mean, the amount of pain and suffering that will occur if that is the route that we go down, you know, is just unimaginable. No, much better is the finite and calculable amount of pain and suffering that would occur if we phase out the human race now, in a conscientious and staggered manner. Now, of course, I know that human beings aren't going to go through this route, not at the present moment in time anyway, that's for sure. Anyway, that's the end of part 1.